What's up, friends? This is Ajax, and this is episode 9 of the Golden Age of Broscience podcast. Before we get into the episode, I want to give a shout out to not sponsors, but services, products that I use and highly recommend. Number one is Fitness Genes. This company has been legitimately life-changing for me. It is a genetic testing company, and it looks at your overall genome and it divides it out into, I believe, around 15, 16 categories specific to your physiological health. So your muscle building genetics, your endurance genetics, your cardiovascular health genetics, your brain genetics, your digestive health genetics. It's very, very useful. I was really impressed. I didn't know what to expect when I signed up, and I paid for it, and I was, as I said, impressed, and really just the utility of the test results and how you can use this to make more holistic, informed decisions with your health optimization, and also really understand your genetic background and what does your body biochemically, genetically, specifically need to maximize your overall function and metabolism long term. So code AJAC20, I'd recommend everyone listening go sign up with them. It is the missing piece in your overall health journey. Number two, Function Health. I've talked about them before. If you need really comprehensive lab testing done, and again, has excellent user experience, contextualizes all of your health data, check out Function. I think they are unmatched in this regard. And then number three, if you are utilizing peptide restoration therapy, you are a bro scientist and you want a good vendor to buy from, Elite Research USA. That is who I get all of my peptides from, and you can use the code AJAC10 for 10% off your next purchase. With that said, this is episode 9, and let's get to talking with Biohacker.
What's up, everybody? This is Ajax, and this is, I believe, episode 9 of the Golden Age of Broscience. I have Oren here with me today, Biohacker.
Yeah.
And we are going to discuss all things health, full spectrum health, and what got him into the scene. How you doing, Oren?
How are you doing, Alexander? Thank you very much for inviting me on.
Yeah, no, I'm happy to talk to you. So let's just sort of give some history, since I followed you for a bit, and you always posted really insightful content, but you call yourself a biohacker.
Yeah.
I assume you had sort of a journey that got you into trying to optimize your health. Just tell us about it.
Yeah. So from the beginning, I can at least say that up to around 16 to 20, so I'm from a region of Ireland that would be more, we aren't really focused on optimizing our health. There's obviously quite a big drinking culture and party culture within the UK and Ireland. So what had happened to me originally was I had no interest or little to no interest in health outside of playing sports from a young age. Always played football, was always extremely athletic, always competing in everything. I played football or soccer right up to about 16, 17, and then fell off and went on to more like a partying sort of scene. And left college, and it was just partying every weekend, getting into that sort of culture and that degeneracy, so to speak. But after a while, it sort of wrecked my health. And as a byproduct of that, then I didn't really know where to go, but I just fell into the space of a lot of, what's the word for it? Watching podcasts for health. How do you like just regain your health and everything? And just see, I had this feeling where I was like almost lost. I didn't really know where to go or what to do. And then by a byproduct of this, I just feeding into this certain, we say ecosystem, or tapping into this certain wave, because like I feel like health itself is like a wave. You eventually you could listen to one podcast, and as a result you start following these things, and you start doing different things as a result, because I had like accrued a lot of bad habits through this time of just partying and going down this sort of sphere. And as a result, I used to smoke every day. I was like a massive smoker. I smoked 20 or 30 cigarettes a day. And the first thing in my mind was, right, how do I stop this? So I started to do breath work. So that was my original thing that I had entered into this health sphere. So I went cold turkey and done breath work for 28 days. and completely rewired my health as a result. Stopped smoking, and that was the first catalyst that led me down the path to, I suppose, where I am now. But I'll continue on and go on. So I started jiu-jitsu as a result. I read it. See, the reason I started the breath work was I read a book by a guy called Hickson Gracie, and you'll see in my cover image, I've got Hickson Gracie there. So I read a book by him, and then I joined a jiu-jitsu club because I had met my best friend as of now, who have been best friends for 5 years. He says, you need to go try this. And it's funny, I was actually reading the book at the same time. I says, oh, obviously this is what I need to do, and this is where I need to go. So I started jiu-jitsu, got really competitive at that. Lost my first 15, 16 matches, but I was lucky that I was very, I've got a very willful intent, shall we say. So I kept going, doing that. And then I says, well, I need to optimize my health. Went and looked at my hormones. My hormones were terrible, obviously, from all the bad habits that I'd accrued over the years. So I started to do lifting. I started to do optimizing my diet, everything else. And then I says, oh, I need to go and actually do something to make myself some money, or I need to go and do some sort of education of some kind. So I went back and done education. I done an undergrad in biology, chemistry, and physics. So that was what it led me on down that path. And then one time, someone said to me, he says, oh, you have a lot of like dense knowledge in what you actually do. I think you should start a page or something. So as a result of that, I eventually then found my way onto Twitter. I was posting all the time. I wasn't really getting much traction. But by but, I've sort of stuck it out for a number of years, and I've got to where I've came now. I now do coaching, but I originally didn't charge. I just done a lot of stuff for bodybuilders, a few different people. And for a long time, I didn't charge. And then I built up my skill set, and now I charge. And I've got a full-time job in doing this. And I suppose that's very interesting. There's so much I'm trying to reductionize in that one sort of short period of time. But I'm so grateful for everything that's happened to me. I think I've got like potluck of everything that's happening, the amalgamation of things that has happened over these past few years is all down to just following a path and just being willful and directing my energy into the right places, because that's all it is really. It's like everything that you have now in this moment of time is just directed energy, and anything that's all it is economizing your energy in the right way that you get to where you want to be. So that's just a start. Sorry, I've went on for about there. If you have any questions as well too of things.
No, that was great. That was a really good recap. That was very chronological. So let's go back a bit to the beginning. So obviously, as you said, you're unhealthy. You're in your late teens. Your entry point is breath work. That's actually not. That's the first time I've heard someone say that. So a lot of guys, oftentimes it's more so like they go to the gym and they start lifting. But your thing was breathing. And then Rickson Gracie, for those of you who don't know who he is, he's a very acclaimed member of the Gracie Jiu-Jitsu family.
That's
something
correct,
like hundreds of competitive matches, supposedly never lost. Like there's a documentary about him. I think called Choke, I want to say.
That's it. That's great.
Yeah, a really famous documentary. It shows sort of his whole life, and he's very, very warrior-like, very monk-like. But what was it? Why breathing specifically? Why were you drawn to that over other things?
I'm really not sure. I think I don't know why in particular. It was more his how he accredited breathing to changing his life, because even it's not just that, it's more, and this is something I don't really talk about breath work online as much, but it's just something that's part of me now. And even like I do it alongside meditation and everything as well. But I don't know why I was drawn to it in particular. I think I needed something. So obviously, if you've ever smoked, or I don't know if you have, but when you're on that hut, it's quite similar. Breathwork's quite similar, and it's funny. My friend had even said to me, he says, in order to rewire your brain, you need something that's quite similar to the habit itself. So that's a lot of people do, is you still have that neural pathway there. So I think for me, that breath work still feels like a cigarette hut to me at the time. So it felt like I was hacking my brain by doing that, and that's what the breath work felt like for me. But then as a result, it just like I got healthier and my anxiety was down on a lot of things. And even if you notice, if you're someone who does breath work and you track your HRV of times that when you're doing breath work for versus when you're not, you'll notice that there is a huge difference, especially in rest and heart rate and everything as well, because it does control the autonomic nervous system between the parasympathetic and the sympathetic balance. So it only makes sense. And you've got the vagus nerve as well too, which is connected. Even with like the likes of if you see you're doing any sort of deep diaphragmatic breathing, you will increase vagal tone as well too, and it's helping with things like that. So I think people look at things like breath work as for a period of time it was like pseudoscience, but as we know the way Broscience works is it's like everything is pseudoscience until it's proven right or it's proven I think this is the problem. Obviously, with a lot of sciences, people are relying and waiting on studies to prove something that's right over time. It's like I think sometimes you need to be intuitionistic with your knowledge. You know, when you know something's right, it's right. You don't always need a study or literature to prove that. You should just know intuitionistically.
I agree. So, like, tell me more about breathwork, though, because I admit I've never done any kind of breathwork. It's one of the everyone sort of has their range of tools that they experiment with, things they try. Breathwork in particular, I've never experimented with it. Like I've not done any sort of, I guess you'd say like format, diaphragmatic breathing, anything of that nature. I do cardio, but no intentionality around it. So like, how would you lay it out for somebody who's interested in it in terms of just explaining what it does and like what would be sort of the lowest hanging fruit to, I guess, sort of follow like a formula if there is one?
I think the best thing to do for somebody would probably be to do even send them a guided breath work. I always say to someone, just do. It's like if you're asking someone to go to the gym, you should probably do, I don't know, like bench, deadlift, and all the basic exercises you do, like a pull up. You should always get them to do that first. I think guided and some guidelines of just like send them a video, do this basic breath work, master this, and then start playing it around with it yourself, because I don't like using the guidelines of you should follow what I do. I think everyone should follow what feels like to them intuitionistic, as what feels right for you. There's no one particular breath work or pattern that I think is good for anyone. I think they should start experimenting with them themselves. The same way with meditation. It's like I don't like saying do some sort of non-dual meditation, do body scans. It's like find out realistically what works for you, because it feels antipathetic to the freedom of it. You need to. It should be. It's in a form of expression, and you're there with yourself, and that moment in the day, and it shouldn't be like it's like a task. Because when you're going on with that mindset with the tasks, it doesn't free you as much. It's very rigid in structure, and as a result, you go, "This isn't working," and you'll leave, and you'll probably never do it again. So, I think the best thing to do is just go on with the guideline and be impartial about it. Just go like, "I'm here." They not understand this, but they be involved in it. Just so that's and then from there, figure out what releases tension for you, and then work from there.
Gotcha. So with doing breath work, like the nervous system, and again, I admit, like I know that it helps regulate your nervous system. I've never dove deep on the science of it. What actually is ideally happening for somebody if they're doing breath work regularly, where it's helping their heart rate, helping their vagus nerve? Like, what are the effects you're getting from it?
See, it's hard. It's quite hard to reductionize the effects. But if you're gonna say the same as what everybody sort of says, is when you think about it, if you're always in that high sympathetic state where you're easily stressed by a lot of situations, very minor situations. So for me, obviously, with competitive jiu-jitsu and just like a competitive environment in general, you're in that high cortisol state because your body is thinking, "Oh, you're in this fight or flight response." So when you're using things like breath work as well too, and you're activating the parasympathetic nervous system, you're then able to control that stress. I've worked with likes of Um, I have a hypnotherapist as well and a sports performance coach from myself.
Mm-hmm.
I'll discuss about him in a bit. But what we go into depth about is when you're fighting, for example, you want a balance of, like, you don't want to be too far parasympathetic or you don't want to be too far in the sympathetic so that you're in that fight, flee, fright, or freeze response. You want a balance of both. So, like a dichotomy. So, enough that you're chilled out, but not enough that you're too chilled. So, you're on the fight, but you have the balance of both. It's like, and that is everything. It's but like the yin and yang symbol. You don't want that state, and that's what breathwork helps you get into that state where you're there in awareness and presence, but you're not overwhelmed by the stress. And if I could say anything about breathwork, it helps you get into that modality that you are on there in the present, and you can release tension, and you're getting that breath out. Because if you ever notice in cardio, for example, and you're constantly breathing and you're in that heavy breathing state where it almost feels like you're in panic mode, breathwork can help you regulate that sort of panic. And that's what you need, especially when you're in that situation with your fighting or anything. Or, for example, I had a couple of years ago, I had an uncle who had choked, and I was able to remain calm and do like a Heimlich sort of maneuver because I was on that sort of low threshold state where I can manage stress. And people think they need hormones for that, but that's only one thing. Is it what's your daily I suppose threshold wouldn't be the right word, but what is your daily normal mode? Like, what do you function? What is your daily function? How do you function under stress? And that's something that even I believe hormones can fix. I think they can help, but I don't think, I think it's all down to how you manage or how you anticipate stress. And breath work can definitely help with that. And just meditation in general, just that awareness of what's causing the stress, what's causing the cortisol spike, what's causing norepinephrine, what's causing this adrenaline dump for you personally. And I think that's what breath work can sort of offer you as well.
No, that's really helpful. It made me think of the past. An episode or two before this one, I was talking with Kira Leah, and she's the creator of Quantum Health Academy. So, like, her big thing is circadian biology.
Yeah.
But she made a really good point in that episode where she was discussing that, you know, you can move to a sunny environment, you can eat all the right foods, you can change all these environmental external factors. But if your nervous system is still stressed out, if you're still hyperreactive, if you are still high cortisol, it's not going to make the difference that you think. Very often with health, the sort of the health ecosystem, we like to almost think that we can sort of, I say, like, buy peace of mind.
No, you can't.
That, you know, if I purchase this or this or this, or, you know, if I'm outside and it's sunny, right? I'm outside and it's morning. I'm doing these things I'm supposed to be doing. It's going to resolve sort of my mental crisis, and not necessarily. Like, that's an internal journey that you need to go on.
Yeah, exactly. I've had that. I had that myself. Like with jiu-jitsu, I found I had lost a lot of matches. So I do competitive jiu-jitsu. So I've had a lot of fights. I have upwards nearly 120 competitive matches now. But when I first started, I was losing a lot, and until I went to a hypnotherapist and we had discussed things of what was actually blocking me out. I suppose I was getting in my own way, and that's the mental health. That's the mental side of health that people don't see. And to become a champion in anything or to become great at something, you need to get past these mental defects you have. And everybody has mental defects when you think about it. When you're from 0 to 8, you're in that theta state where you are picking up all these bad habits and these things that are going into the subconscious mind that you can't even begin to fathom, all these failures that you have from a young age, that you, like, these limiting beliefs and these things that, like, oh, I can't be healthy, I can't do this because this happens. Like, these are things that you can't even, you're not even aware of them because they're unconscious. And that's the thing. It's like there's a lot of people out there that just claim that exogenous hormone will do X, Y, Z. You move to you move. I don't even agree with like if you move out to like an island somewhere, you move out.
Mm-hmm.
If you get away from the city, like that's not health. That's fragility.
Mm.
That's how can you react? Is you should be able to be adaptable to any environment. That's a sign of a healthy organism. And that's well, if you want to argue for and against evolution, but if you're looking at it from a standpoint like a lion, if you see a lion or some sort of animal that you look up to, that you say, I want to be like that animal, a gorilla or something, or whatever, you see them with scratches, scars, everything else, their adaptability, their resilience. When you're seeing an organism that you respect or a type of animal that you respect, you respect it because of how durable it is. If you say you love a certain kind of computer, for example, with me, I've got a ThinkPad there. I love how durable it is. But why, as human beings, do we try and go in the opposite way? Like, we don't look at ourselves from a truthful standpoint and say, oh, well, am I durable? Am I flexible? Am I adaptable? This is the sort of things you have to ask yourself. I think competition and things like that are helpful for this. When you're in that competitive environment, you can't lie to yourself. You have to know that you're adaptable. If you can't handle the stress, it's there in sight. It's completely it's a reality based. Whereas you can run and hide from other things when it's not put in front of you. And I think that's a very important thing.
No, that's critically important. See, you mentioned, since I've done some combat sports training myself recreationally, but you mentioned, so you got into jiu-jitsu, you lost like your first dozen or so matches.
A lot.
Now, yeah. So now for most people, they'd probably quit. Like, I think I'd be reasonable in saying this. If people don't like to lose, they don't like failure.
No.
If so I mean, I'm sure you've seen this. People go to any kind of combat sport. They go in, they try it. Maybe they lose like a first match or two, and it's like, all right, this isn't for me. Let alone 5 or 6 or 10, right? What was so you obviously talked about working with a sports hypnotherapist. What was your mindset when you were losing, but you kept showing up? Like before you got into that big mental transformation, were you just very determined of like, you know what, I lost once, twice, I don't care, I'm just going to keep going, get a little bit better? Like, what made you handle the failure so well?
So I was doing very well on the gym, but it was just a mental. I knew it was a mental block. I knew I was in my own way. So that was more for me. It was like it was probably just trying too hard. And it was just, I knew it was on my own way. And then going to that hypnotherapist, maybe it was because I felt like I passed the problem off to someone else or freed myself. I don't know if it's both. Maybe it's placebo. Maybe it's like, I believe in hypnotherapy definitely as a tool to think, but it could have been a mixture and amalgamation of factors. I couldn't really isolate any specific point, but I knew that I was capable of it, but it was just that I was on my own way. So I've as a result, I've that really opened me up to the idea of different things and different tools. So, for example, I signed up for a course with a guy on Twitter recently for Alexander technique. Alexander. There's a guy called FM Alexander. It's mostly it's people think of it as like a posture thing, but this course opened me up a new idea of it and a new way of consciousness, so to speak. So I signed up for that recently. It's not to tear from a thing from the original point there, but it just, that hypnotherapy and that journey itself opened me up to so many different things. And as me as a human being, I don't feel rigid, and the idea that I'm like dogmatic, that this must work and this works and this is the only type of thing. Like I've accrued a lot of systems thinking because of all these journeys that I've amalgamated. Like I see things differently because of all these different things that I've done over the time, over like doing education, doing chemistry, doing biology, doing physics, and then doing things like Alexander technique, doing things like hypnotherapy, my jiu-jitsu journey. Like they've really expanded my thinking and seeing things differently.
Okay, no, that's very interesting. So, I mean, in your case, it wasn't, as you said, it wasn't a lack of, say, physical ability of like, I'm just physically not good at this. It was like, you knew the obstacle was yourself internally.
Yeah.
Yeah, to add to FM Alexander technique. Tell us a little bit more about that. I actually know what that is just from when I was a dancer years ago, but I'm going to assume most of the audience doesn't know it all. But FM Alexander, it's a technique. Most people think it's posture. Like, what have you learned about it so far?
So far, I didn't realize how knocked off I was in my own awareness. Like even the idea of, for example, the guy's called Michael Ashcroft on Twitter. So I recommend you go buying his course. Really nice guy as well too. And just a wee side point on that as well. Like I think that's great about Twitter is the fact that there's a whole ecosystem where people buy and just give back to it. It's a self-sustaining ecosystem where people are financially helping each other. And I just think that's beautiful that there's an ecosystem by itself that it's self-sustaining. It's just a beautiful aspect. So I recommend checking out his stuff as well too. But for me, so far is he calls his website Expanding Awareness, and it's the whole idea of expanded awareness. So basically, sorry if I butcher this, Michael, but his idea is even like sometimes you get lost in space. So if you go onto your computer, I notice this sometimes, is you go onto your phone and you're not really aware of the space outside that phone. You're not even aware of even sounds or anything else. You're completely on the phone, and I'm sure sometimes you even notice this, or even a lack of presentness. You'll look up and you go, geez, I've lost time. You've lost 35 or 40 minutes that you're completely on Twitter, for example. You've scrolled in your phone, you've scrolled to the point of thing, and you've been completely shut off to the awareness outside yourself. It's very hard to explain for me because I can barely even understand and put it across. But even, for example, one of the segments that he talked about was when, for example, if you were to hear an airplane up above you, you look visually sometimes. You don't actually try and expand your awareness up. You know, like we're visual types of creatures. We don't expand our awareness. We don't stay in the same place and expand our awareness and imagine that you can hear the airplane, but without actually trying to, you see, you done it there now. You actually try and look up. So I thought that was very interesting. But expanding your awareness beyond yourself, and then even bringing it, for example, behind yourself, so that you can feel that awareness behind, in front, up, and around. So you sort of have to play with it yourself. I can't. It has to be something that has to be practiced for it to be understood. But it's good. Michael is definitely the best. I'm not an expert on it, and I just tried it to see what was up with it and how it can actually add more to my performance, or even the likes of reading and writing. Because if you're looking at a lot of literature and things like that, you need that. You need to be very dialed in and make sure you don't miss things and see things differently, and you need that sort of concentration, that expanded awareness. And even in jiu-jitsu and things like that, like in fighting sports and combat sports, it's very good to be aware of even your space and everything around you, and how you're reacting and how you're performing, so to speak. Because sometimes if you're someone who's ever performed anything, as you said, you were a dancer, you can get too in your own head and get in your own way. And the same with a podcast. For example, I'm on this podcast now and I haven't even really thought about the outside the space. I'm just thinking about me and you and everything else. So it can add to things like podcasts or things that you're nervous for, or competitions or anything else. And that's all what we're trying to do. All we're trying to do as people is to be the very best at what we do. And we don't want to get in our own way. And that's a big thing. It's quite a common thing, because we're putting on an act, we're being theatrical, we're actually self-veiling in some way, we're not actually being ourselves. Sometimes we pretend to be someone else and get in our own way, but all you need to do is be yourself and don't get in your own way, and we shouldn't try too hard.
No, that's I think a good description. Obviously I'm not an Alexander practitioner myself, so I'm not maybe that was incredible. Maybe that was not so good. I think he did a good job. F.M. Alexander, I was just first exposed to his work years ago. I think I had a teacher who had done a lot of Alexander lessons, and she would talk about the necessity of awareness and self-awareness, of knowing where you are in space. And then with performance, like with dance performance, artistic performance, there is a certain internal journey you're on when you're expressing yourself, because what you're feeling is coming from within. But then at the same time, you're being seen.
Yeah.
And you're on a stage, or you're inhabiting this larger area. And then you also have people around you that you're oftentimes interacting with. So it's this very, I don't want to say it's just like it's a balance, but you are existing in multiple places at once. You have your inner world, you have your outer world, you have the people, and then how do you sort of account for all of that? And then also there's an aesthetic portion to it, right? Because you're moving in a way that is pleasing to people. You're not just moving mindlessly. You're not just walking through like an arena, walking through a corridor. Yeah, and then with combat sports, I always find the psychology really fascinating. I could see where the technique could have relevance, since the popular, I think, misconception for people when they think of fighting is they think of like moves. It's sort of like very like sort of 1990s kung fu. Like, what's like a move that you do? Like, you do a move and then the person, I don't know, is knocked out. Something like that. And then when you actually go to do it, really any combat sport, you can just pick that. You pick boxing or jiu-jitsu or Muay Thai or judo, or just something that's actually competitive. And then you realize you're a body in space and you're a mind, and you're interacting with the other body in space who also has a mind, and each of you is trying to put yourself into an advantageous position to score, to hit, to strike, grab something the other. And there's an element of tension there, right? And they're watching you and you're watching them. And then it's not just your body, it's also the floor. Like, I think every combat sport athlete, whether they're casual, hobbyist, or super serious, if you're any level of decent, you hit this realization that your footwork, right, matters. It's like, wait, where I am in space matters a lot more. Where I am in space with my feet and my moving through the space matters a lot more than just what I'm doing with my hands. So that's like a really big realization. And then you have like, well, what are you doing with your hands? So you just keep stacking. Like you go through this whole journey of ignorance where you don't know anything, and then you keep stacking levels of awareness on top of yourself. And there's always a new thing that you pick up on, even from people who've been doing it for years. Of like, oh wow, I've never thought of it that way. But then it unlocks this whole new array of the factors, this whole new vista that you can pay attention to, that you can see for the first time. It's endlessly fascinating. I think that's why people who are combat sport athletes, enthusiasts, whatever, is like, you never get bored with it.
Yeah. That's the same with everything as well. I believe, for example, like with coaching, if you think about it, like people think they go on the coaching with like this ignorance thing, but like coaching, like the theory is like the easiest part. The implementation of anything, or how you're going to get someone to do what you want them to do, is like the hardest part. And then you stack these levels of awareness. That's what it is. Each time and each year you add on to whatever you're doing, you're stacking levels of awareness. Why do you hire someone? You hire someone because they have went through these certain mistakes. They have this certain level of consciousness in that domain. The Germans like to talk about it. They've got something called fact competence. I have it down in my notes. Is basically it's having domain specific knowledge, skills, and abilities. And so, like, knowledge about the theoretical understanding of a subject is first. Like a biochemist, like knowing certain metabolic pathways. You'll have then the skills, which is like the practical abilities to use that knowledge in certain like real life situations, like running labs or interpreting markers, adjusting certain amount of dosages to tailor into the person. And then your experience and your own judgment. So like experience you've had with past clients, just contextual wisdom that you've had through like repeated practice. And knowing like when a certain like marker, like you've seen something before, you're knowing how that like fireworks go off in your brain. You go, I know how this applies. Or you've seen someone in the past with someone, you're saying like, I think I know exactly what I need to tweak with you. I'm sure you've had it with like coaching people. You've seen someone before where they just can't put muscle on, and you say, maybe you'll try a hut, and then you'll go and you'll do like a certain segmentation of training, and you just see muscle growth. And like it's them small things that really makes you respect somebody as like a coach or someone with certain type of knowledge. Is you're not paying them for, well, you're paying them for their problem solving abilities as well too, but you're paying them for the level of awareness and consciousness they have in that one particular field. Unless, of course, there's someone they just, if they're just completely blissfully ignorant and they just haven't tried at all, then you're probably going to get someone that's terrible. And but if someone has at least put on a bit of effort day by day to accrue some knowledge, you're going to get someone who's, as the Germans described as fat competent, someone who is like an expert in their field. And that takes a lot of time, of course, because it takes a lot of time to accrue that knowledge. And that's what you're paying someone for. And I'm sure you know that yourself.
No, I like that term. I mean, with coaching, with teaching people, yeah, I've said this before at various times, like when you first start out as a teacher of anything, everyone's terrible because you have no experience.
Yeah.
Like you've only trained, coached, learned yourself. And then you're very reliant upon other sources, authorities, credentials, like a guidebook, something of like, okay, I don't really actually know how to teach because I've not done it, but I was taught a model. I'm going to use that source material. And then you go do it. And then your first probably 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe 5 years, depending, like you're not very good.
Yeah.
But you obviously, with the more experience the more experience you can pack in, the faster you'll improve. But that contextual body of knowledge, it takes time. But it changes how you learn as well. Because like once you've learned one thing to like a certain level of mastery, you have a model of how to learn anything.
Yeah. Joshua Waitzkin talks about that, art of learning.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's an art to learning. And then it allows you to also recognize bullshit, like when you see bullshit. But then also too, I think, especially with like the field of science, health sciences, fitness, exercise, nutrition, diet, or just like the human organism, like as a whole, you realize there's such vast variety.
Yeah, definitely.
And it makes you less prone to wanting to give prescription. Like there are formulas to follow, like there are definitely principles. But then when it comes down to solving someone's particular obstacles, problems specifically, that's very customized. Like you can say like, yes, everyone's maybe you have sort of a model you follow of how you approach things, but at the same time, what the experience will be for that person, it's always going to be a bit unique and a bit different. And certainly people have archetypes of personalities, like there are, speaking very generically, someone who's naturally very relaxed is not going to be the same student as someone who's naturally very high stress.
Yeah.
Like
you have to
people.
You have to fix you have to be, it's contextual. It's like how people are using AI at the moment. Like I'm not saying AI and humans are similar, but like everyone has their own individual context, and you have to sometimes morph to fit their context. If someone's got children and they don't have the time in the day, like how do you as a coach fit that time into their day? Like understanding the interconnectedness of everything, having that same awareness and that same awareness of space about someone else's space and their interconnectedness, and what would this person in particular need, and adjusting that in a very context specific model. So that's what I think. This is the problem. I think if you don't have some sort of deductive reasoning, or you don't want to defer from the model, it's the fear of deferring from the model because you don't feel competent enough. That's the problem. If someone doesn't feel enough confidence, they say, "Oh, if I defer from the model," then they're always having to be mentored because they're like, I'm afraid if I do anything, I'm going to do it wrong because I only know the model. I only know how to do squat, deadlift, bench, and that's the equivalent. It's like I only know how to do squat, deadlift, bench. How do I do everything else? And they don't want to defer from the model because that's all they know. They only know the model. But if you want to get better, you just have to be willing to make some mistakes, and that's okay, and that's fine. And it's just how we learn, and it's sort of surrendering the ego in that way, that we know that we don't know everything, and we can just say we don't know. I don't know there's so much I don't know, and I'm just trying to learn as much as I can.
I don't know most things. To ask you somewhat a bit more practically, if we were to talk about like biohacking,
Yeah.
how do you actually define that yourself? Like, everyone has sort of a bit of a different definition. Some people don't like the term, some do. Obviously, it's existed for a long time. It's something like a loaded phrase, right?
Yeah.
How do you define it for yourself?
It's quite hard. I don't know. I just look at it as I just really just look at it as health. So, like for example, when I wake up in the morning, I just do I just have this same sort of repetitive routine where get up, get me. I'm up. I get up at. Obviously, I'm following circadian biology. Well, as much as I can do in Ireland, there's not really much. There's not really much sun. um, well, northern hemisphere circadian biology is usually made up of a lot of clouds. So for me, I go to sleep at 10 o'clock and get up at 7 or 6 as well. Usually around 6:30, and that's just to catch that the first 2 hours for the slow wave sleep. I actually take. I don't want to drop any things because I usually keep this for clients. Like, but I've been using a supplement for the past couple of years. But well, maybe the past 6 months. So I take that sublingually, and it's supposed to boost slow wave sleep. I don't want to drop any names because I don't want the price of it to go up as well. But it boosts slow wave sleep, and I'd say I've added an extra hour and a half on slow wave sleep because I track through WHIP. So I follow the both. Like I have this idea of resonance that you should always stack something on top. So, for example, you wake up first thing in the morning, you've got a cortisol boost, stack some coffee on top. Obviously, you're finding resonance, physics term there, but you're finding resonance with whatever you're doing. So, like, this is the problem. A lot of people, for example, I've tried with clients, someone will go to bed at 2 o'clock and they'll take this supplement, they boost slow wave sleep, won't see any difference. Or, well, a slight difference, but not the same it was what I'll see, because I'm just stacking on top of my biology. And this is why people are saying biohacking, but like, you're just really, when you're using compounds, for example, who's going to do better? If you've got someone who's eating a great diet, they could take 80 milligrams a test, or you've got someone who's eating a shit diet and 150 milligrams a test. A lot of the time, you could see the guy with 80, who's getting 80 milligrams a test doing better than the guy on 150 milligrams because you get diet and everything locked in. So if you can lock in your diet and just stack the compounds on second, like, this is the problem I seem to find with a lot of people is they just want to go straight to like compounds. What am I taking? What am I taking? What am I taking? Instead of just locking in these, like, get your electrolytes sorted, get your sleep, go to bed at 10 o'clock. Exercise, like these are all these like basic sort of things before they're really the major and the minors before they've really knocked out the easy stuff. Because like when I went into the gym and stuff as well, I just done the same thing for 2 years. Like I done a lot of lifting as well too, just to get bigger for jiu-jitsu. I just done bench, deadlift, squat, and for like 2 years straight. And I done like the chicken and rice and everything for like 2 years straight. But that's the same principle should just sort of be applied everywhere. I just don't get how people just want to try and fast track themselves, and that's really the problem. They want to fast track themselves and want to skip these basics. Sort of went off on a tangent there.
Yeah, no, that was excellent. We'll talk more about the principle of resonance. Kira referenced this as well in that episode, which I had
amplifying
mentioned.
the volume of what or the rhythm of what already exists. I believe that's the correct definition in physics. Amplifying the volume or resonance or the volume or vibration of something that already exists. So, like when you're going to bed, for example, you're getting like that slow wave sleep on. Would it not be intelligent then to like stack some supplements on top of that? Get on like that's for me, that's the way I see it. And like the same with like I obviously take peptides as well. And on top of my diet and everything, like I will stack, like my diet will be, everything will be down to a T. Like I track with chronometer every day. So like my diet's down to a T. I'm just on calorie maintenance at the minute. I might have to go up a wee bit. I have a son due on Thursday. So my son was born on Thursday. So
okay, you're a father now.
I'm going to be a father in a couple of days.
A couple of days. Okay.
A couple of days.
Okay, congratulations. Okay, I never said this. So your son, he's going to be born on Thursday.
He's going to be born on Thursday, so that's due.
Okay.
We say due date. In Ireland, we'll say due date. So he's going to be born on Thursday. So I'll be putting my calories up for then, and maybe I think the slow wave sleep and a lot of the sleep optimization could be out the window for a short period of time.
Yeah, that will be a new experience for you. Okay, no, congratulations. I had no idea. That's awesome.
So I'm looking forward to that. But I'm just glad I've accrued a lot of these skill sets that I can sort of instill in him, because growing up I didn't have this sort of knowledge, or like no one in my family was like anti health, and it obviously pours out the other parts of your life. Like health for me is, if you're getting more energy, like all it down to is you have more energy to do things. You can play with children. You can, like, for me, the way I look at it visually in the future, the way I'm visualizing the future for myself is like, I don't want to live forever, but I just do want to live the best I can for as long as I can. So if like, I want to be the jacked grandfather who's a black belt in jiu-jitsu, who's healthy, who's living a life that's fulfilled, like helping other people. Like that's for coaching for me. That's why it's so fulfilling. I'm in this positive feedback loop where I'm getting paid to do what I love, and I'm helping people as a result. Like I've changed people, like a few people this year. I've helped them with mold and mycotoxin illness, and I've changed their life and helped them just. And as a result, like telling family and friends, like how you really help someone, and seeing the like more light come into their eyes and more energy, and seeing how their confidence changes, like, and seeing how their life changes. Like that's what health is, just realizing the interconnectedness of all things. And physics talks about that as well. Like we're all just one interconnected thing, and it's very hard to explain that to people. And like health is a beautiful thing. Without health, like you don't really have much. And if someone would say to me, "Oh, would you rather be healthy? Would you rather have 1 million or 2 million, or you know, an excess amount of wealth?" Like you're choosing health every time. Well, for me, that is.
No, that's true. I mean, that's yeah. How's the adage go? Yeah, like if you have health, you have everything. If you don't have health, you do everything to get it back. If you were in a terribly unhealthy disease state and you had $100 million, you'd be spending the money trying to fix you'd be spending the money trying to fix your state, trying to fix your body and your mind and all those things. I don't think anyone would be enjoying their material abundance that way. I mean, I've seen people like that who are extremely wealthy, but if they're unhealthy, it doesn't matter that you can write a check for a certain amount of money. You're going to be in the hospital. You're going to have pneumonia. You're going to be in pain, which that could be a very odd thing sometimes for very successful people to grapple with, where it's the one problem that you can't outsource it. Obviously, you can't delegate it. You can't bring in somebody. I mean, you can hire a trainer. You can hire the best doctors. But if you have taken very poor care of yourself, you're going to suffer the consequences regardless.
Oh, on a cellular level, you see this all the time. It's like you can't really. It's like trying to say like a computer. If you look at like a processor on a computer, if that processor has been worn down for a period of time, or if there's damage at the very base level of a computer or a car, like if you see damage on the very base level of a car or how it mechanically works, you will find that it won't run as well, and like you can't even. There's sometimes it just can't be fixed, and that is quite common. And like if you're looking at pharmaceuticals, for example, pharmaceuticals a lot of the time are used as, what's the word for it? Just to treat symptoms, and obviously not treat the root cause. The analogy I always use is it's like painting over cracks in a wall. Like the cracks still remain, and it's not going to change much. And the thing is, some people do need pharmaceuticals, and that's I never argue against that. Like I like a symbiotic relationship of maybe using both, using like pharmaceuticals, using peptides, using supplements. Like for example, for some person who's got maybe a very bad genetic predisposition, say they've got a polymorphism on something like the ACE enzyme, which is to do with your blood pressure, angiotensin converting enzyme. Like with something like that, if you've got a polymorphism and it does need treated with like drugs and stuff, then it's a no-brainer. Like there's some people that you've tried everything with, say they've tried lifestyle, they've tried supplements, they've tried peptides, and just nothing seems to work. Like it's important for someone like that. They take a certain pharmaceutical, maybe ramipril or some other angiotensin blocker of some kind. Like that's when pharmaceuticals should be used. Like a lot of people I find on Twitter, they don't have an understanding of or an awareness of like how pharmaceutical companies work, and they're just sort of like throwing words out there when they've never really been in that setting. They just think, oh, pharmaceutical companies are evil, pharmaceutical companies are the devil. It's like pharmaceuticals have their place and drugs have their place. And I'm sure if you spoke to someone like Abud Bakri or anyone on Twitter who's a doctor, they will tell you how certain drugs are fantastic and how that they shouldn't be demonized. And I think that's the balance, and that's what Twitter needs to have, because not everything can be fixed, and that is a very unfortunate thing. Is root cause should be approached, but if it can't be fixed with a root cause, then sometimes you have no choice but they turn to pharmaceutical or turn to a drug. Maybe sometimes you've probably seen people who have taken testosterone, that have tried to fix their testosterone levels, and it just nothing is given. They've tried diet, they've tried lifestyle, they've tried all different things. They've tried exercise, and it's just not working for them. And at times like that, like testosterone, like is a great thing, and it shouldn't be demonized. And drugs shouldn't be demonized if they have a use case. So I think that's important to not get too sucked into dogmatic views because someone told you that online that you need to do this, you need to take this approach, and if not, more elastically, that's wrong, and you're wrong, and you should be ashamed if you take testosterone, or you should be ashamed if you take this pharmaceutical. Sometimes you have to look and have your own critical thinking skills. You know, right? Do I need this drug? What is the best approach for me in my context, individual approach? And I think that's very important. So if anyone's listening, I would just say, just be very critical in your thinking skills and know your own individual profile and your own individual context and what suits you, and don't get dragged into dogmatic views because someone on Twitter or someone online told you so.
No, I could agree completely. That's a great point. It's very easy to be dogmatic online and say anytime you make strong claims, especially if you have like a certain very ideological viewpoint, it gives us a certain sense of authority, maybe not knowledge, expertise, but like, wow, this person has a very strong opinion. They're shouting it, so to speak, but maybe it's right. But when you work with people in the health space, whether, there's various capacities to do that, obviously, but you work with people and you're trying to get them healthier. There's a context for everything. And then, like we just said a little while ago, like nobody knows everything. I see this a lot like in the natural health space. There's a sort of fallacy that if you could just use, even the term natural, like if you just use natural means, like all the problems will fix themselves. And that's not the case. Biology is very messy.
Oh, very messy.
The human body things can go wrong in the human body in infinite ways. Not everything can be fixed with, I'm being generic. Not everything can be fixed with just like sunlight, diet, exercise. Like that's not going to solve everything. That can help a lot of things. That should be your first proactive line of defense. Like that should be the foundation of your habits. That's not going to fix everything. Even the concept of root causes, like, you gotta find the root cause. You can have multiple causes for something. You might not be able to differentiate which one mattered more or less. You may have a problem happen that you're never going to find the cause for it. Even that kind of thinking that it's very mechanistic. Like if I can just find the one thing that triggered everything, then like I just take that away. Now I solved it. Yeah. So, sometimes it is that simple. Sometimes it's not.
No, I believe that there's something that always replaces itself. It's like when one problem. When you remove one problem, it's about like training in jiu-jitsu. You find it is very like I'm trying to understand this from like a visual standpoint. Is like when someone or I'll use a boxing analogy because a lot of more people do boxing jiu-jitsu. When someone sticks out a jab, they don't just stop. And I think the human body works quite similar. is there's a jab and then there's another one, and as soon as you think that you've got it figured out, there's another jab, and that's why it almost you have to build a resilient organism instead of, all right, that's fixed, I'm healthy forever. It's like that's not that is not how it works. Health is it's like you have to pay your due on it every single day, and even at that doesn't guarantee anything. It's like, I think if you're looking internally, we're very afraid. Deep down, we're afraid of getting sick. We have a fear of death, and that's what it is. It's like your body, your internal monologue is probably just saying, like, it creates a certain narrative because it's trying to protect itself. It thinks, once we get this one problem solved, everything is going to be perfect and root cause, and we're going to be healthy forever. And while that is like a very utopian sort of view, and it would be fantastic if the world was like that, it's just not the case. So we do have to sort of build ourselves up in a way that's resilient, that even if I do get sick, I will be able to handle this, and I will be able to maybe go to someone, and you just don't want to let them problems accrue. You don't want 5 or 6 different health problems at the same. What you realistically want is, I've got one small issue and I'm always managing this issue so that it doesn't cause me too much bother. Or you can take the approach like where you're just like, oh, because I'm sick, I'm just not going to try, and I'm just going to get sicker over time, and I just don't care about my health, and that will also pay consequences for you as well. So it is a sense that you just have to come to grips with the fact that there's always going to be another problem to solve, and that is life in itself.
Yeah, no, it's a very fortunate time. Like, you realize this as you get older. I mean, I'm in my mid-30s, so I'm not that old, but I think most people would agree. If you've been alive long enough, you have a bit of wisdom, you will have periods of time in life where everything is going well. Like, you have smooth sailing, whichever metaphor you want to use. You're making money, your relationships are good, and everything is maybe not calm, but you have it under control, and you enjoy it. And maybe it's sort of like a golden time period. That doesn't last for forever. Yeah, nor should it. But it never lasts for forever. There's going to be, if you want to grow, you're going to eventually encounter some new challenges or some new problems, or you'll have something that's unaccounted for. There'll be some sort of accident or mistake, or just you'll hit sort of the threshold of your competence, and there's the next phase. People who want to stay stuck within a golden time period, that over time will shrink you. You'll actually start to regress. Maybe you've seen this, but yeah, it's where they don't want to have any problems. They don't want to have any stress at all. But then you become less resilient. And then, even the qualities that got you into that position, you actually start to lose them. So you realize that life is constant growth.
Always. It has. I couldn't explain it more. As you're fighting against the metaphorical waves of life. It's like you should never be in the one place continuously. You should always be looking for where the next wave is, or building that resilience in yourself. It's quite hard to try and transfer that knowledge to people, or that sort of wisdom, because I think it's a very earned thing. And you should be. I feel like when you are in a period of comfort, you should probably chase discomfort. Where for most people, when they're in a period of comfort, they're happy with the comfort. Where they don't want more. Like for me, for learning, I love knowing nothing. Like I love knowing nothing, knowing that I can learn something. Like it's being in I don't know if you've heard of Joe Hudson, but he's got a great podcast called The Art of Accomplishment, and it's more like a mindset, love, empowerment sort of podcast. But it's fantastic. He's a coach, like an executive coach for some of the biggest entrepreneurs in the world, the likes of Sam Altman. Not that he's my favorite by any means, but the Joe Hudson podcast, as they talk about the view mindset, which is, if I remember correctly, vulnerability, impartiality, empathy, and wonder. I was like, that is the perfect 4. Well, not the perfect 4, but as perfect as you can framework to loving life. So obviously vulnerability is like coming on a podcast, speaking about like your truth of where you've came from. That's that's acting that out. Empathy, trying to help people, trying to bring people up, trying to give people opportunity. That could be another thing. And impartial. Sorry, I went backwards there. Impartiality. So being impartial. Mm-hmm. So impartiality results, just accepting everything for what it is, and then being in wonder, knowing that you don't know what's going to happen next. Like if you can remember when you were very young as a child, when you just like look at this world, this is like amazing. Oh my God, there's a bottle of water beside me. Oh my God, caffeine. I have never had this before. It's like this. Acting this certain way that is like everything that's coming new to you is like the best thing ever, and you've never seen it before, and you don't even know what's going to happen next, and that's how wonderful it is to actually be alive. And so being in wonder, that's the part of their framework, is the view framework: vulnerability, impartiality, empathy, and wonder. And like that's even for me, like using that framework. I don't know if it would work for everyone else, but being like that. And knowing like not what's going to happen next. Oh my God, you're going to be in a podcast tomorrow. You could meet the president tomorrow. Like you just don't know. And like that's the sort of beauty of life, where as I feel like we get in this stage where like you think like, I know everything now. There is nothing else to learn. My ego is mastered. I have 100,000, 200,000 followers online. I am the smartest guy ever. It's like a lot of people get on that framework, stop learning, get lapped, or same with the jiu-jitsu. Someone thinks they've won something and they think, I've finally got here. I've reached endpoint. There's nothing else after this. But if we know like the universe itself's endless, there is no innate end day, and there's no point we're actually are searching or looking for. And health's the same. There's no endpoint. We're always just trying to learn more and trying to figure things out as we go on. And that's a real beauty. And it's trying to like incorporate these things into your life, because all this is just information, and we're in a very period of information, but I think we're in a boom of information, but we're impoverished by implementation. So a lot of people have a lot of information, but don't implement it at all. They're like so obsessed with this information that we have so much. We have AI, we have all these things, but there's just like zero implementation or carrying these things out or implementing these frameworks. Like that's the most important thing. If you're going to carry things on to the next generation, is what you do usually in a tribal sort of environment. And why we respect people who are elders. If we are to pass things on to the next generation, then its implementation is possibly the most important thing. And I feel like I wrote a post before one time that you liked, and you actually reposted it. I was like, bodybuilders are doing a lot more than doctors for the science and the health community, because like these are people who are implementing these studies themselves. Like they're trying things out themselves. And that's a beautiful thing. And that's amazing what people on Twitter are doing, because people on Twitter have done so much for health and they don't even realize it, because they are implementing this information. Well, a lot of them, I don't know, I'm not sure. I'm sure there's a few anonymous accounts who don't do anything, but who we know that are putting themselves out there in the sphere, like, I applaud them, because like they don't realize what they're doing. And I don't think it'll take 20 or 30 years to realize the magnitude of what actually like these testing things yourself, because you're not going to get any sort of pharmaceutical or big companies or doctors to coordinate sort of large clinical trials on some of these supplements or some of these peptides, because of the actual safety issues that come with it.
Yeah, that was fantastic. Just speaking just to the peptides, he's got me thinking about this. Like, I mean, part of the reason why I started this whole podcast is because I hit this point in my career that I've seen other people have come up through X, especially, they're so smart, within different fields, like so many different domains of knowledge. Whereas when I got started with fitness, it was a bit more basic. If you rewound the clock back like 15, 20 years ago, no one was talking about circadian health, for example. Biohacking was very much in its infancy. Peptides, the deeper science of nutrition. Yeah, even like what you talked about at the beginning, we're talking about breath work, the nervous system. Yeah, these were like extremely niche subjects. Like to even find them at all, like I'm not even sure where you'd go. Because maybe like it would be like some like very tiny forum online somewhere, right? Or
Yeah.
like a chat room. Yeah. And now all this stuff is out in the open, and I see all these people. I'm like, wow, this is incredible. And I want to. That's why I started this podcast. As I said, I want to have these conversations with people, since just exercise by itself, or just like the basic mechanics of dieting, nutrition, like that. Yeah. I think that we have a fairly good handle on. But there's so much that I don't know that I'd like to know. But what was I saying? Peptides specifically. I try to explain this to people, and like Abood's written about this, like in very good, like succinct detail. That like how come big pharma doesn't study these things? And I realize like the regular person, they don't know how scientific research is done per se. At least like in the pharmaceutical industry, that doing research it costs money.
Yeah.
I mean, this is just very basic, but like, it's something could be interesting to you. And there's lots of supplements, right? There's lots of great nutraceuticals, nutrients, minerals, things that exist that can really help your health. But like, well, how come there's not studies on it? Well, maybe there are studies, but this very, very simplistically, a study costs money. Like if we're going to study, let's just pick something. We're going to study taurine. Okay, like taurine's amino acid. If you want to study that, you're going to need some actual scientists. You're going to need a laboratory. You're going to need to pay those people. You're going to need to create the experiment. Like, I mean, this is why typically the stuff comes out of universities. And if it's not a university, then okay, maybe it's a pharmaceutical company. Well, pharmaceutical companies exist to make money.
Yeah.
Like their goal, their business, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with capitalism. So they exist because they want to make money on a product. So, and pharmaceutical companies spend billions of dollars in research all the time. A lot of which doesn't actually work out. Taking any kind of compound drug from preclinical trials, like, hey, let's just make sure it doesn't kill someone. From preclinical to clinical, stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, that takes like a decade plus.
Oh, definitely. It's insane.
Right?
Like even they actually like build on what you're saying is so like you could look at a pharmaceutical company as basically having the GDP of a small country. And that's what they are. They're essentially pharmaceutical companies are a small country in how much actual capital they have. So they first have to allocate money in the R&D, and then what they have to do is they have to pick a certain drug that's going to solve a large problem. For example, GLP-1s are not just mono fat loss drugs; they solve multiple issues.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what the thing is they look at it as okay, how can I kill as many birds with one stone as possible, because that increases the value of the drug as well. So you also have people like I'm sure you've heard of Martin Shkreli.
Mm-hmm.
You've heard of Martin Shkreli. So you've got people backing against biotech companies. So people who are going to back that a drug doesn't work and is going to go bust. So you have that they take into consideration. So a pharmaceutical company is not looking at moralistically, like, oh, should we use peptides? Should we use these things? Is like, there's like 50 major bottlenecks in order to actually develop a drug. As you said, you've got clinical trials, you've phase 1 and phase 2. So they have to actually look at the safety and the tolerability of the drug. So they look at like maybe an Alzheimer's drug has to be tested in your grandmother who's like 60 or 70. So they have to test if that drug has first bioavailability, how long is its half-life? Does it have any side effects? Does it have any interactions with any other drugs? So say she's taking Ramipril. So what interactions is this drug going to have with Ramipril? So like there is the problem in itself. People are looking versus seeing. They don't see the bigger picture. They don't see R&D. They don't see the fact that these are corporations trying to make money, that they also have to consider the fact that there's people backing against, they're shorting the stock. They need to make drugs as effective as possible. And there's like they also have a span. So what you need as well is like they'll buy the patent, but the patent only lasts for a certain amount of time. And then they have to get the drug to market, and then they have to market the drug. So they've got like, it's a balancing act of all these things. Like, I am so glad I'm not in pharmaceuticals, because that amount they juggle, and then you have to get the drug to market straight away. For example, BPC was actually due to be, there's a Pliva, which was a Croatian or an Eastern European company, actually had the patent for BPC. It was very interesting. And they were acquired by a certain American company. But as what happens when a drug takeover happens with certain pharmaceutical companies is, as a result, some drugs get left in the pipeline. So they will forget about them drugs because they're focused on what the next big project was. So say, for example, now everyone's focusing on GLP-1s, and there's another drug there that just doesn't going to make you as much money. So we're like, oh, okay, forget about that, because we're focusing on what is the big hitter, what is going to make our company money, what is going to keep us afloat. And that's where people don't see the bigger picture, and as you wouldn't, because when you're in an echo chamber, if you're sitting at your desk and you don't understand the bigger world of how things, because you're in an isolated, you don't go out and have conversations. Like I have friends who are doctors and chemists and everything else, and they tell me all this information, and I'm like, oh, that's interesting. I didn't know that part, and they add to my knowledge. And I'm like, oh, okay, that's interesting. And if you had dogmatism and you were like, I only care about functional medicine, I only care about saving the world and saving the planet, and uh, everything else is moralistically wrong, and I just don't agree with what you're saying. It's like, okay, I don't agree, but from a logocentric standpoint, like these are the facts, and the data say that.
Yeah, it's more complex than anyone believes, especially like with peptides. You just gave that as an excellent recap, but when just like another simple point to add to that, like for a pharma company to have a drug and a patent, right? Like it has to be something that they can actually have a patent on. Like a pharma company can't patent vitamin C.
No.
Yeah, like it's not something. Because it's not a unique chemical structure. It's found in nature. Vitamin C is vitamin C. It exists in many forms. Pfizer can't claim that they invented vitamin C. A lot of the peptides for the same reason. Like I've explained this to people, like, well, how come such and such company isn't like exploring this? I'm like, some things like GHKCU, which I just wrote an article about that's actually been used in the dermatology industry, skincare industry for decades. We actually have pretty good research on that it works, but again, it's also not something you can patent. It's found naturally. It's a naturally occurring chemical in the body.
Yeah, it doesn't have the copper. It doesn't have the copper ions. See, that's what it is. The ligand is GHK is found naturally in the body, and that's what it is. But you're 100%, and I think personally, like I believe like GHK is like the first real natural anti-aging compound. Is like that. That is the one. If I was like to pick out all the peptides, I would either pick that or BPC to use. So that's like, and I've done a lot of experimentation with a few different ones, like MOTS-C, and I used the one that Lance Armstrong used. It was Actovegin, and then I've done oxytocin. I've done everything except TRT at this rate. But I'm sure, and I've actually, my labs are fine, so I haven't had any need for it, and I just don't see like hopping on yet until I get to the stage that I need it.
Yeah, TRT. I've been asked that question. How come you're not on TRT? I'm like, but my testosterone levels, even at my most unhealthy, like the past year or so, I was traveling international. I was changing time zones constantly. Diet, it didn't go to total shit, but it was just like this, the inconsistency of eating, where you're always in a different place and sort of just getting your hands whenever you can. I was just trying to eat high protein, not think about it. Even after all that, I still came back, got my testosterone levels tested. It was like the low 700s in the morning. Free testosterone was fine. I'm like, I'm pretty resilient. And then it went, after I started sleeping better, circadian biology, all that, like it went up a whole bunch. I'm like, all right, well, I'm good. At the same time, like all the benefits of testosterone, I still recover fine. Libido, strength is there. I'm sure hypothetically, I'm sure I'd feel even more amazing. Sure, but there's just no biological need for it.
Exactly, and that's the thing. I think a lot of people are just pulling the trigger on things. If you don't need it, you shouldn't go. It shouldn't be just a case. I feel like a lot of people online are pulled under vanity because they are seeing people online and they feel like this is going to change my life. And as much as it's great, it really is great. I think it's great that you highlight the benefits of testosterone. I also think you have to understand is like not everyone should hop on. It's like it should be a personal choice. People are very gravitated towards the vanity, and I think that's the same with bodybuilding. Like I don't agree with and people might even like argue against this. I don't agree. Everyone should just relentlessly just inject themselves with everything unless they're going to compete. Like, and a standpoint that they're going to sacrifice their health. Like, I think it's important that you should have some kind of a valuable crusade, shall we say, like a real crusade. Like, if you're going to really risk your health, make sure that you're doing it for like good reason. And like, I talked to someone who's a bodybuilder before, and they said this. They said, like, I've told people not to do what I do, and he's taking drugs and he's taking everything else. He's taking a lot of steroids. He's taking a lot of anabolics, but he always says, I would not advise the same for some person unless they know they're going to be a pro, or they know that they're going to, like, I just don't think you should just sacrifice your health for that short period of time. So I think it's important to be honest with yourself. Like, if you want to be a competitor, you want to be a competitive bodybuilder, take the risk and at least balance the books with your health. But if you're just taking an abundance of anabolics for no particular reason or no like North Star, I just think it's completely useless. So I think that it just doesn't make any logical sense for me to do it. Even moralistically, or even in a sense of like, I could understand if they're doing it for a sense of fulfillment, they want to be the best. But like, if you're just sacrificing your health and you don't have a North Star, it's just sort of pointless. And I think you will come to regret it.
No, I think so. I mean, the thing with anabolics, especially, I've told guys this. There's like the older crowd of men where the testosterone levels have gone down. They want to get optimized. They want to feel young again. But understandable. Then you have the guys where they're competitive bodybuilders, and then you have the guys maybe they just want to be really muscular. They just want to be big. That mentality, it's not wrong. Like, it's
no, it's certainly wrong.
Yeah. No, it's I totally understand the drive. Like, I want to be bigger. I want to have that physical appearance that like I aspire to. I can only speak personally. Myself personally, I was never caught up in that world of wanting to. I was never caught up in that mentality of like I got to impress people who look at me and say like that guy has really big muscles. I didn't care. I mean, obviously I'm a personal trainer and I do lift, but what got me into lifting was I wanted to like get female attention in high school, and I started lifting weights, and then I did, and I was happy with myself. I'm like, I like how I look. Girls think I'm hot. Like, my self-esteem has gotten a big boost. I'm like, I'm great. And then, what you find in like the bodybuilding world is that at a certain point, you're working out, you're lifting weights, and maybe you're taking anabolics, but it's to impress other guys.
It's a bit of a weird one.
Like you're doing this because you want men to, sort of be, I guess, sort of in awe of you. And that mentality just escaped me. I was not that mindset.
I find the only people that actually have it, it's mostly people in the bodybuilding community that will be like, oh, you're jacked, you're so jacked and thing. Or like people that lifted themselves, like a lot of men, they'd be like, oh, you're in good shape and stuff as well. But once that point wears off, is like, you have to go home at night and you have to look at your health and you have to look at 5 years down the line or 10 years down the line, like where are you at particularly because of your choices? Because your choices that you're making, if you're doing it for a vanity standpoint, that's all well and good, because time catches up and things eventually entropy, and you should just be really think in depth, like, when I'm making this choice, what barrier am I crossing that I can't come back from? And even if you do want to take anabolics, just at least put effort into maintaining your health. Like, eat a good diet. I have friends that are on anabolics and just eat like shit, and they just don't care. And like, I'm trying to say, go get bloods done. I'll actually pay to get your bloods done. And they just do the bury the head in the sand approach, which doesn't seem to work. Where they just go, I don't want to look at the bloods, I don't want to eat thing. And it's like, they don't actually say that, but that's, I know internally they're like, they don't want to look at it. So they'll take the berry, they'll inject whatever they're injecting, and not look from a truthful view, or see what the bloods say, or see what it's actually saying deep down, or what's going on underneath the wood, or underneath the woodwork, really.
Yeah, underneath the hood. Yeah, that's something that on HealthX, I'd say the overall community of people like the trend, so to speak, is like people are very health conscious. Do your labs, get blood work done. But that's actually not really necessarily typical. At least, like let's say, like in the bodybuilding, like more of the bro world. A lot of people will get anabolically enhanced, and they don't pay attention to anything. But bodybuilders are very notorious for dying young. Like, is it the steroids that killed them? I'm like, it's not the testosterone directly, but you have guys in very high doses of stuff, and their blood pressure, they don't care. Blood pressure, they don't care. The resting heart rate, they don't care. Their liver health, their kidney health, they don't care. Their lipids, they don't care. And then bad things happen. It's like, well, how'd that happen? I'm like, these individuals who are in this community, like they're not the pictures of health at all. Like, and they know this if you ask them, like, do you consider yourself, like metabolically fit, healthy? No, like they're doing this thing. They're doing this because they want to attain a certain muscular size. The pageantry, the sport of bodybuilding. But then, the biohacking community is very different. You have people who are, enhanced, or they're getting themselves optimized, and they are paying attention to their health data, which is what you should do. Like you should be very aware of where you're, as much as you can measure it, you should be very aware of where your health is, and know how to objectively improve it or pull back or, change things as needed.
Oh, definitely. I can agree too. And like, I'm not like I love bodybuilding. I love bodybuilding. I love some of the even just the classic sort of physiques. And like, I always watching, even growing up, and I'll just watch a lot of old Menser stuff, watching a lot of Mike, and then watching just a lot of, just in general, just more the classic sort of physique. I don't really know much about bodybuilding outside of that. And I don't really know much about bodybuilding in general. When I was lifting, it was all to do with just growing for my sport and trying to put on size for that. But I can applaud the actual. I can applaud the discipline and the hard work it takes to actually get that level of physique and the diet and everything. And like, I love that about bodybuilders, and I like that someone has like a personal crusade. I like that the fact that they're willing to sacrifice to get where they want to be, and I think it's a very masculine trait to be willing to do that. So I love anybody. Like, I have a load of people on Twitter who follow me who are bodybuilders, and like, I'll comment on their stuff sometimes. They'll be all like, amazing physique. Like, it's because it's just I applaud them. I don't, like, they might be different from me, but it doesn't mean that they aren't similar in ways. So like, I love that about online. And I think with Twitter is like, you have this new breed of bodybuilder. That's what it is. You have this new breed of a bodybuilder that have like the safer usage to sort of that they're actually caring more about their health than they do. They're looking into their bloods, but that's on Twitter. That's not the general sphere or the general zeitgeist, shall we say, on when you're looking at maybe Instagram and all these other places. So Twitter is really ahead as a platform.
No, it is. That's a very good point. Like the next generation guys, even the overall fitness industry, I've noticed this. Like I see you say the Zoomer generation, whatever you want to call it. But as overall health knowledge has increased, the individuals who enter into being health enthusiasts, bodybuilders, whatever label, they have a much wider, they have much broader awareness. And the information that they're working off of is a lot more comprehensive, a lot more up to date. So that their overall health practices, their training practices, their dietary practices, all of it's more cutting edge. A lot of it is more effective. And we can make fun of certain things and certain trends, but like the overall state of knowledge is the best it's ever been to everyone's benefit.
Yeah, undoubtedly. I couldn't really add much more to that. Like, I just think the still one of the major bottlenecks is the implementation of this knowledge. I do think in order for the space to grow, there needs to be some kind of joining together of some kind where people do exchange their knowledge and like they know what worked, and it can sort of it can fast track the knowledge if everybody can join together and share information. But that, unfortunately, that happens is like gatekeeping is quite a common thing. Is everybody gatekeeps, I gatekeep, and I think some information should be gatekeeped, but not all of it. If it's going to progress things, because I have a lot of information that I've gathered through like functional health for even like some mycotoxins and mold and just overall like functional medicine, like repairing people's livers, repairing kidney health, a few different things that I could possibly apply and give people that information that they can then, like they can implement it and their practice of some kind. Or even dosages, certain dosages of drugs that seem to work with some people and don't work with others. Like these are the sort of knowledge that needs to be implemented. But then the thing is how do you monopolize that where everyone gets a fair share, which is, I suppose it's very communist in its actual ideology. It's like, oh, we should all sing, hold hands and sing Kumbaya, and you will get this and we will receive things. So obviously we live in a capitalistic society in a way, and people do need money, even me, myself. So sometimes you can't, this is why things are gatekept, and sometimes it can stop the progression. But there needs to be, I still believe there needs to be some ecosystem in some way that we do pass knowledge on to each other. Because Twitter isn't enough for that. We do exchange knowledge, but I'm speaking of like direct knowledge of like functional medicine and what you're doing with clients. I suppose it would probably be best to get a lot of people together. For example, yourself, Chris Master, John, people like Abud from Twitter, getting everyone and like an environment where they can exchange knowledge, even if it's in like a group setting where they say, I've did this worked. And I just feel like that would really be expansive in terms of mitochondrial health and everything as well too. There's other people I forgot to mention, like Bowtide, Biohacker, and a few other people, Noah Ryan, people like that, and get these sort of people in the room with each other and share knowledge in a way that it's expansive. Graham Hood as well, actually, that's another person I forgot about, but getting people in their room that could possibly then lead on to other things. Everyone builds their knowledge together.
Yeah, that's a great idea. I think we've some of us have discussed the idea of doing some sort of get-together forum in the future. Which sounds very cool, but doing events is like a logistic. There's a lot of logistics that go into it.
Yeah,
and then promotion, getting people to show up. But yeah, it's trying to pass on knowledge is always a challenge. Like you can't make things free. Like this life, not just life costs money, but people don't value things that are free. You could dump all of your knowledge out, like in a blog, everything for free, all of it. It's not necessarily going to get read or even applied. Or it gets just, I've seen people make that mistake over the years. When you give too much of yourself away, then you also cheapen the value of it. Because what people not just pay for, what they invest in and what they look for when they are going to spend energy on a solution. There has to be a psychological buy-in and a recognition of like what they are looking at is worth something. And it's very sort of idealistic to think, well, if everything was free, everyone would learn everything of their own accord and be great. Like, no, if everything was free, it would just go unused for the most part. Libraries are free, and libraries are. Does everyone go to the library to the maximum? No. Yeah, I mean, even online, right? We have how many tools do we have that make information free? A lot. The LLMs are like a big boon. You have YouTube. You have all these resources now. Like you can go find information. Are human beings naturally being autodidactic and going and applying all of it? No, of course not. It's like the psychology of learning and of behavior. It requires us to pay a cost for something. We want to invest that way.
Yeah. It's
but
biologically incongruent, not because it is. It's biologically incongruent because when you do perceive someone a value, like for example, if you do give, I've done that. I have always noticed that people are more likely to implement the more you charge eventually, like down the line. Like from when I had like clients at the very start, when I was charging like a very like bad, like terrible rate, like really low, and as I increased my price, I actually noticed that people were more implementing the knowledge more. So it is, you're 100%. And if idealistically we could live in a world that, as say, kumbaya, sing hands, and everything's for free, then there likely wouldn't be any sort of progression at all. So that's a good point. I definitely agree. I definitely agree with that, and that's the problem as well with like people ask for things. So like they see things like mitochondrial testing, they go, I would really love to see mitochondrial testing, and then when it comes, they'll be like, that's too expensive. I can't believe they're trying to monopolize that. They're like, well, this is the price of like things when you're asking for things to be done. Like you have to pay a price, and that's just the way it is.
Yeah. No, that's. I mean, I'm an unapologetic capitalist at this point. If you want people to actually use things, you have to charge for them. And generally speaking, I mean, anyone that works in business will tell you this: the more you charge, the better your customer will actually use what you're selling. But like the mitochondrial testing, there are actually some tests now that exist. I know Chris Masterjohn has created one. Oats testing exists. Organic acid testing. But these tests, like you're doing something that has to be sent to a lab and analyzed. Like, no, it's not a cheap test. You're not just measuring one biomarker in the blood. Let's say like measuring testosterone levels, just one. Like you're measuring multiple things. But they are very useful. If you can afford them, and if you know how to contextualize and use the data from them. Otherwise, it's just numbers on a screen that you're looking at, and you don't know how to make sense of it.
Yeah. That's what I do is obviously people hire me for blood work coaching, and then on top of the service I already provide, so I just do lab analysis as well. It's very tedious, but I don't know, it's my certain personality type. I would have sort of more like an architect's brain. My grandfather's a mathematician, so I think genetically I've probably inherited some. I do like Euclidean path games, and I'll do a lot of problem solving and stuff. But I do think I've just inherited a lot of, like, these aren't even a lot of time growing up at it. I was very good at problem solving. So like bloods themselves are just a problem, just solving problems, complex problems, and I like doing it. Like most people wouldn't like doing it, but for me, I could spend 5 or 6 hours looking through blood work. But that's me personally.
But so tell people, we've been talking for 2 hours, and we're coming up to the end. But tell people, how do you work with people? How can they work with you? What services do you actually provide?
So I provide monthly month. So I actually don't. I think this sort of just is like a testament to my actual coaching itself. So I don't actually offer like 3 to 6 months coaching programs. I usually just keep people on a monthly retainer so they can leave at any time. Most people stay from 6 months to a year. So that's usually probably like a testament. They have a very high retention rate. Each month, it depends really. It's just on the state of the person. They'll send me bloods through. I'll give them a full plan of what I believe that they should do, how to adjust these bloods. That's like my generic plan. A lot of the time I've worked with a lot of complex health issues. So I've worked with a lot of people who've got mold and mycotoxin illness. I just specifically like the work with, you can look on my YouTube. I have actually a landing page coming soon as well too, with a few client testimonials and some people I've worked with. But you can check one of the testimonials on YouTube with a guy called Josh. We helped Josh. Josh had mold for 20 or 30 years plus. He was exposed as a child. He went through 4 or 5 different practitioners. And he was actually with the National Health Service, which is doctors and everything else. He was given TRT at one point too to try and fix his testosterone, but because his SHBG was high due to mycotoxin illness, I believe some inflammatory proteins were likely increasing his SHBG because it comes from the actual liver. It's produced by the liver, so it was binding up a lot of his free testosterone. Luckily, when he worked with me, he was able to resolve a lot of these issues, resolve the mold and the mycotoxin illness. I'll give a quick recap on my mold and mycotoxin. So everyone obviously talks, mold's quite common, but it's not mold that is the actual direct issue. It's mycotoxins that cause a lot of the problems. There's a few different types of mold. You've got Stachybotrys, Aspergillus, penicillin, which is penicillin, obviously you've heard of. And they produce these mycotoxins, which are very small metabolites or byproducts. The best analogy to use for mycotoxins and mold is the gun and mycotoxins are the bullet. So mycotoxins can cause a few different issues: nephrotoxicity, which is damage to the kidneys, and then hepatotoxicity, which is damage to the liver, as you know. Some of a few different ones: ochratoxin A, fuminogens. What's the other few? I can't remember off the top of my head, but there's a few different mycotoxins. And you'll get a mycotoxin test. Usually, some people urinalysis, but there's blood tests coming out now as well. A few different companies, the thing. But long story short, anyway, back to the actual coaching program that I've actually. So I've obviously people that work with me will first figure out where the problems are coming from with their health. I've had hypothyroid people with hypothyroid issues. I've had people with liver problems, kidney problems, high blood pressure. So I've resolved a lot. I've resolved all of those issues for anybody that's worked with me. So if I could really reductionize my service in short, it's lifestyle, supplements, peptides, and blood work analysis, and basically merging all them. I like to use. I've put it up my landing page, Mixed Medical Arts. I'm actually I need to actually trademark that, Mixed Medical Arts, which is it's a balance of everything. So I also obviously focus on sleep, diet, peptides, supplements, and just merge them all into one, and this is a very balanced sort of service, and trying to max out energy for a lot of entrepreneurs, and a lot of most of the time I've had athletes as well, and some entrepreneurs work with me. So trying to max out their energy with such peptides and certain types of supplements. But it's very hard to reductionize a service when it's very complex. But I hope I've done the marketing well enough for myself. Sometimes I go too much on a tangent. So
no, that was a fantastic pitch.
I'll get the landing page up so that people can just the service can sell itself. So I've worked maybe upwards now of probably 10 to 20 different clients. I can't even remember the amount now. There's been that many, but I'm sure that they can all attest to working with me and how glad they were of it.
No, that was excellent. Even the mycotoxin part, that was probably the best description of mycotoxins I've ever heard in like a minute and a half. Awesome. No, that's okay. Awesome. I know this is fantastic talking to you, brother. I have more questions now, but then I got to go to my next.
No,
my next
it's okay
thing.
anyway. So if you have anything to ask me, just fire it through. I was a lot to reductionize in a 2-hour period. You would probably need a lifetime. So we'll hopefully we'll meet up at some point, and I'll come to America, and we'll have a in-depth talks and chats with a few of the others.
That would be amazing. But yeah, thank you for coming on. And then for all the listeners, if you guys want to have Oren on again, you have questions for him. Since I was learning from him myself the whole time, but if you have questions that you'd like me to ask him, let me know, and we will have him on again as a guest. So thank you, bro. It was great to talk to you.
Amazing to talk to you. Thank you very much for asking me on as well, Alexander.
Absolutely.